Hello and welcome to Business Spotlight. Here we have today, and we welcome Managing Director and Co-founder of the Hygiene Co, Phil Scardigno. How are you?
Good, Melanie. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on today. We've just had a bit of a chat, and I'm really excited for you to share with all of our audience exactly who the Hygiene Co is and how and all the amazing things that you guys are doing. So let's just get straight into it. Tell us, who is the Hygiene Co and how did the business come to be?
Well, the Hygiene Co is a manufacturer here in Adelaide, South Australia, Woodville North. We manufacture plastic-free wet wipes. So wet wipes in the market are predominantly plastic, a single-use plastic that people aren't aware of. The contribution of plastic waste in Australia is like 15, 16 times more than what plastic straws are, possibly more. That is in the consumer space, that's in industry and medical predominantly. And the business came about during COVID, actually. I'd been made aware from the South Australian government at the time that they couldn't access wet wipes because of the shortages, during the pandemic. It was global. Everything was imported, which freaked me out. I've been in manufacturing for 30 years. And then when that realization came and we looked into it, then I found out it wasn't just that it was imported, but then they're all polyester and polypropylene based. And the amount of landfill, plastic landfill and microplastics, and my background in chemistry and manufacturing with polymers, I know the impact of plastic on the environment, but when it was just this buildup of waste. So as a passionate manufacturer and local, I created this business. I had a brand called Clean Life, which we'd started making wipes for, and we were servicing medical at the time during the harshest part. But then we realized it was every space, consumers, industry, things like baby wipes, which we discussed, home usage wipes, cleaning wipes, and then there's industry wipes with tradies and paint wipes and barbecue wipes and pet wipes, all this area. So I had a model in place, met Corey White, who'd been in the medical industry with Haynes Medical. He had a business there for quite a while. We joined forces as the co-founders and we started this business. And we've put together a plant here at Woodville North, South Australia, which is a fully automated plant to manufacture wipes and be competitive against the imports. Because, even though it was Australian made, there was a high passion for a local manufacture. We still needed to have a product that was competitive. So we needed to invest in automation. So we've got a significant investment here with an automated plant. I started with 8 people back during the pandemic at the time, and we're sort of at 23 employees at the moment and growing. And that's where the Hygiene Co is at the moment. We've created something that's quite unique. We've got 4 products listed with the TGA for medical. So we've got really high quality processes in place to ensure that we meet the demands of the medical industry. But the benefits of that is that when we're making products for consumers and industry, those same processes are in place. So, there's a high interest in local manufacture now out of the pandemic. There was before, but it's far greater now. And what we've been able to do is sort of input a bit more trust in the fact that we've got something that's local and plastic free. And that was our biggest base, to make sure that we had an alternative. So instead of using polypropylene and polyester, which all the imported wet wipes are, we use plant-based materials, which are compostable and biodegradable. And we're also moving into flushable. There was a new Australian standard brought out last year to meet a flushable standard to prevent all the blockages in drains from things like sanitary and wipes and nappies and all sorts of things that shouldn't be flushed. Then we've brought a flushable technology now that meets that standard. We're the only Australian manufacturer doing that. And there aren't many imports that comply either. And that'll break down under the dispersion of just a toilet flush. So, we're going to explore a few more spaces in the areas where we can help cut waste out of the environment. And that meets the flushable side. Flushable won't be for every application, but it definitely will have a lot of the home usage ones. particularly for baby and feminine hygiene and sanitary usage.
Yeah, I have 10-year-old twins. I would have loved those flushable wipes about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Would have been great. But it's awesome. It's a huge impact that your business is having on the Australian economy, because you're creating manufacturing here in our country, and great for South Australia as well. But a huge impact on the environment as well. You mentioned to me, I can't remember the numbers exactly, but the usage of wipes over and the plastic in wipes over the usage of straws. I can't plastic straws.
Yeah, that number was just mind-boggling. When we had been given numbers from SA Health and Northern Territory Health and Queensland Health, we had just the medical industry numbers, and then we did the calculations on the average sort of pack of wipes. And I remember sitting with Corey and doing these numbers, and I said, this can't be right. You know, it was like we had more than 25 million packs of wipes just in medical. And then when we calculated the weight of a wipe and then put that back into plastic, you know, we started getting numbers like over 10,000 tonne of plastic. And then we did those numbers, and we saw stats that came out from official government statistics that said plastic straws was 800 tonne. That was a major environmental impact. And I thought, this can't be right. And I said to Corey, even if we've got this, we're half, or even if it's half the figure, it's still a significant number here. But then we've spoken to some of the larger retailers like Woolworths and Coles and Aldi and the Metcash Group, and we had statistics shared with us, and we did those calculations. And I remember speaking to one of the major retailers, which I won't mention their name, but we're in their head office in Sydney, and sat and went through this. And when we gave them the statistics on 15,000 tonne of plastic waste, she just said, "You're way off the number." She said it's far more than that. So unfortunately, I mean, this is where the opportunity is, but it's also a concern that wipes are used, I think with millions of wipes are used daily around the country. That's Australia.
Yeah.
In all industry, consumer, medical, industry, general usage, right? My mum was telling me the other day, you know, she wanted baby wipes as a makeup removal because she thought if it's safe for a baby's bum, it's safe for her face, right? Yeah. And I told her that's not always the case, but anyway, we'll go along with that. But the fact is that not many people understand that wipes are creating all this plastic waste, and microplastics are a major environmental issue everywhere. Like, you know, we've seen that in what they're finding in the oceans and food traces and sources, etc., what's in the atmosphere. So cutting out plastic landfills, one. The other part, though, is more about what we did discover as well is that besides plastic, wipes contain anywhere between sort of 70 to 80% of water. Now, when you did the numbers on what's brought into Australia every year in wipes, whether it's in a soft pack, a canister, we're bringing swimming pool loads of water into Australia. So these shipping containers, 3/4 of them are full of water. When you break that down, there's a lot of carbon generated just in the importation process. Now, carbon is a big thing on a lot of government aims and objectives now, and all the net zero discussions. Besides plastic, there's this whole carbon conscious economy we're going towards and going to net zero. And we're generating carbon just from bringing water into Australia, which is nuts.
Nuts, isn't it?
You know, like if we were bringing fiberglass pools into Australia and they were full of water, you know, you'd get condemned. So we went down the path of understanding that further. We got a couple of independent consultants that we've worked with, one in particular here in South Australia, 2XC, and they gave us some numbers and said, look, you know, by making product locally here, you've just from their initial calculations, we were 53% less carbon intensive than the imports. So, you know, besides, it was a tick for us because we're local manufacturing and all the benefits of the economy, the environmental side on plastic. But then when we worked out the carbon numbers as well, we just thought, okay, this is a story that we just need to get out there, and people need to understand when they're using a wet wipe, do they understand the source and trace of it and the impact it's having? And it's a big education space. And we've spoken to medical specialists that are using these by the hour. And when they are told that they're plastic, they're freaking out and going, oh, wow, we didn't know that. But polyester and polypropylene are plastic. It's, and so we talk about shopping bags and plastic cutlery that's been banned in Sydney now, all the single-use plastics. Yet, the easy win for any government, either state or federal, would be to understand the impact of wet wipes on the environment and put changes in. Now, we've seen in the UK, the retailers have actually taken the stance here. So Tesco and Boots, Chemists, and there's a couple others now that have banned plastic wipes. And there's a bill in Parliament over there at the moment on this. Now, I'd like to see Australia go down that path because we're a country that's, all our major cities are ocean bound and the impact we're having on the environment there. But, I just recently came back from Europe and I did notice on the packaging that over there, you've got to state on the pack whether there's plastic contents inside the film.
Oh.
And so that's a great education piece. So at least the consumer's got the opportunity to see, okay, I'm buying plastic or I'm not.
Yeah.
And there's a difference between that. Whereas now there's all sorts of nonsense written on some of these packs saying they're biodegradable, but are they 100% biodegradable? Because you can't be partial biodegradable. You've got to be fully or not.
Yeah.
Because there's not much you can put in the compost bin or it will break down if it's 50% biodegradable and 50% plastic. And then you're still left with plastic and landfill. So, this is a big opportunity for the community and for government and industry to really make a stance here. And we just see us now as an opportunity as being pioneers in this space and really playing our part in trying to make some change.
Yeah, it's great. It's really cool to hear. So tell me a bit about your role in the business.
Yeah, look, I mean, as the founder of it, and I'm currently the managing director. But as I said, Corey White came on, and so as my co-founder. But at the moment, we're still a small business. We've scaled pretty quickly, but we're still small, so we're all wearing different hats. But I work with my different management team from operations and product development, marketing and sales, and that's where Corey and I get involved. We're passionate about marketing and product development. And we're just we're just going through a phase of growth at the moment in terms of, getting the right people on board. And we've been really happy that we've assembled a great team of people here across different areas. And that's at the moment, I don't think my role is going to change too quickly for a while.
So when you're looking for those right people, what are some qualities that you're looking for?
Yeah, look, that's been a big learning of business for me over the years, Melanie. It starts with your values. So, in my previous business, when I had sort of 30, 40 people employed at the time, we started setting values for the business, which was good. But it's always hard to fix that when you've got people that have been on board for a few years.
Very true.
With this business, we got it right from the start. So we actually, one of the first things we did when we were only a small team of 6 to 8 people was started to get our values in place. And what was important to us as a business, our mission, our vision, and the key values. So when we're employing people now, you can get sucked into looking for skill sets and people with experience. But if they don't align with your values, you have got a short-lived employee. I've learned over time. You can teach people skill set. So, I think I share this with other people, other entrepreneurs and business owners, that make sure that your people align with your values and what you are as a business, because it shows in the way you execute on anything, and we talk about that strongly here, about making sure that customers and suppliers and all stakeholders know who we are, what we stand for, and what's really important to us. And it's something you've got to keep working on, because it is hard as a business. You're sales and you're trying to do everything else that's day to day, but it's the DNA of a company. So, when we're looking for people, we do look for the right fit.
Yeah.
And it's always a concern. I always try and question my management team, when they're looking for staff members, are they aligning with our values? Because you can get seduced into seeing a really impressive resume, But then if the person is not aligned with who you are, then it's going to end in tears. And I've seen that over and over the decades.
Oh, yes. I must say your answer is music to my ears. It's always, you're exactly right. You can teach people the skills of how to do the role, but you can't teach them work ethic, values, and it's so important that really aligns.
Yeah, and look, what we do and what we stand for is not for everybody, so that's fine. It's best to let them find a place because, we spend so much of our work life at work, and you want to be happy and you want to be in a place where you feel like you're contributing and you're a part of what it is. And if you can't align with the values, then, find somewhere that does have, the values that you are in tune with, and no hard feelings.
So what type of customers do you supply to? So you mentioned medical and baby wipes.
Yeah, look, it's a combination. I mean, we've got medical, consumer and industry. Primarily, at the moment, we're working with resellers and distributors around the country. So our Clean Life range is, we've been working with Chemist Warehouse. They were early adopters, which has been great. They've just taken on nationally. Foodland in South Australia, the supermarkets here, which is part of the Metcash group, have taken it on. This was all just pre-December. But we've got various distributors in different spaces, like, the Anytime Fitness group. We're really keen to take on our range and had us as a preferred supplier for their gyms. So some of their franchisees are accessing products because they're aware of the waste that they're generating. There is just umpteen opportunities because we've been new in what we've been doing. The business has only been going for 2 years, and the first 18 months was spent on developing the plant and getting equipment and processes in place. So we're still in that space now, but there will be a little bit of direct selling, but we offer that opportunity online because it's a model now that a lot of people want.
Yep.
However, excited to work with the resellers predominantly because it's another add-on line that they can provide their client base, and we're really excited to get homes and businesses in Australia using plastic-free wet wipes through our resellers.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Love the vision. So tell me, what are the biggest challenges you're seeing now and into the future in your industry?
Supply chain is always, I think, out of COVID, that was something that everyone was aware of. And as much as we are Australian made, unfortunately, we've smashed industry in this country over the last few decades. So, we lost the manufacture of textiles, for example, and we rely on textiles. So our supply chain is global. We've spread that around the world to work with partners. We would love government to get the textile industry back going where it needs to be here, but that's not something that a company like us can do. That's an industry based that needs some government thought process. It's crazy. We're sending cotton and materials over to other countries that are using it and then selling us stuff back, just like the wool industry with clothing. But supply chain I would say is one of the biggest challenges. I know people talk about human resources and staff, which I think is always there. And there's been pretty well documented the challenges for business with people. But for us, it's just making sure that you got quality suppliers and you can access it, because as we learned through COVID, just things stopped literally overnight, and making sure that we've got that. Wherever the other thing that we do in our Clean Life range is we use Australian-made native fragrances.
Oh.
So we're using, like, for example, Kangaroo Island eucalyptus, so we can access from KI.
Yeah.
Byron Bay lemon myrtle. We're using jojoba oils out of the Riverina industry or region, tea tree out of Queensland. So all those things are really important to us to use those where we can.
Yep.
But where we're stuck with alternatives that don't exist here, then we've got to buy overseas, and they're the ones we've got to really sit across.
Love it. So tell me, you mentioned COVID just then as well. What was your biggest learning? Because your business was created out of COVID, really. Yeah. What was your biggest learning through that whole process, do you think?
For me, I would say it was the power of relationships. I think back at that time, 2020 was just an incredible period, that 2021 period. But I just saw the strength of relationships, people coming together, working. It was amazing, that spirit, I hope it hasn't been lost. I think people forget things really quickly, which we've seen in some instances. But when the proverbial hit the fan, I think that it really showed the spirit of how companies and competitors and suppliers and government sort of really could dig deep and find there was this common source of help, which was really reinforcing for me. It was great. I mean, and when I say great, that period, I still, those scenes that I saw of some businesses going to the wall were terrible, and the impact it had. And I was one of the fortunate businesses that wasn't impacted during COVID. But I think there was a lot of good things that came out of it, and lessons we learned. Power of community. Community's being strong. And I think, understanding that we need to be a little smarter in terms of being able to look after ourselves, instead of thinking that we're this smart nation and we don't want to touch manufacturing. We just want to sort of deal with IT and technologies. But it's the full end-to-end spectrum that we need to be focusing on in Australia. And from our end, being manufacturers and playing our part, it's a very small part. But we've kept some of those relationships going since then, which has been great. And when all the data and the news and the health industry that we're dealing with, the medical, there's a talk of future pandemics going to come our way again. So I'm hoping that we've learnt that lesson. And the government, both what was there before Morrison and now with the Albanese government, have really sort of put emphasis on manufacturing locally, which is great to see. Really important to us.
So you've been a business owner for some time now. Tell me what's the biggest learning that you've had since becoming a business owner?
Look, you can't be a people pleaser. You've got to, goal setting is so important. Otherwise you sort of work in the dark. So knowing exactly what your goals are and in sharing that with your people, and then working towards that, and you just got to, it's really, you see this massive staircase and you really just got to climb one step at a time. You just can't jump floors. As much as every business owner is impatient and entrepreneurs want to get to the top, there is no sort of rocket that's going to take you up there. So goal setting is really important from my end, and being realistic that it's the long game you're going to play. A lot of people think there's just quick money in business, and sometimes that happens, but those stories are 0.1% of what's out there. You've got to really play the long game and work on it, and invest yourself and get that balance, and make business a place where people want to be, your staff want to be there. People spend so much of their lives at work. It's got to be a place where they go home and they're happy, because if they go home from work and they're not happy, then home life's not great, and so there's that balance. And so the workplace needs to, from my end, that business has changed dynamically from decade to decade that I've been in it, 30 odd years now. And but I'm looking even back 2 or 3 years ago, we never had people pre-COVID working from home. Now we do it, and we can because of technology. And I'll speak to some people and they go, "Oh, what, you're letting people work from home? Don't you trust them?" Well, if you've got that mindset, you've got to have other issues even when they're in the workplace. So you've got to work with your people, and the modern workforce now has to be flexible.
Absolutely. And you're spot on. You mentioned before, like with COVID, that there are some good things that have come out of it. I know personally for our family, we've been able to move out of the rat race of Sydney into this beautiful part of South Australia. I run my business I work with local business owners as well as business owners through Zoom. And my husband runs the department of the business that he works for that are based in Sydney, because during COVID in lockdowns, he proved he could do it. And I think it's allowing people to have that real life balance.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, there's going to continue to change. There's talk about 9-day fortnights and 4-day weeks, etc. My learnings are when people enjoy what they do, they're happy to commit time to work. But when there's an opportunity, to also let them have that family time and give them that, because it pays back into, when they've had that time to sort of spend at home or that free time, they come back and they're more concentrated. I think I'd found that during that COVID period, there was probably more work sometimes done, when people had less distractions, and sometimes working from home, there are less distractions. Very
true. Very, very true. So my final but favorite question is, if you could go back in time, what's one piece of advice that you'd give yourself when you were first starting out as a business owner?
Look, probably just to back myself, on the gut feeling was often the one to go with, and probably the biggest piece of advice is be careful who you surround yourself with, because there's all sorts of people that want to give you advice. But I was in a coaching group, and a guy said something to me once which was so relevant, that there's a lot of non-achievers that want to give you advice.
Yeah.
And making sure you're getting who you're listening to is from achievers, people that have done things. And you just got to be selective. It's not that you're not to listen to advice. I mean, I've had some great mentors and people that have sort of given me advice, and it's important. But I think back to some of the people that I did listen to and surrounded myself, that cluster of people around you, accountants, lawyers, consultants, advisors, and yes, some of them have got good advice for you, but you keep growing as a business owner. And sometimes the circle you have around you isn't growing. Yep. So, what you did in your year 1 versus what you might need in year 5 is a different circle of people around you. And then what you need in year 10, and you keep growing and others aren't always growing with you. And so being aware of that, I think is important. And I probably found that the first 15, 20 years, that wasn't for me. I wasn't doing that. I was probably listening to people that I look back now and thought, I didn't realize. I thought, okay, I didn't want to offend people because of relationships, but I was still listening to them when I was heading in a different path than where they were. But it's just being aware of change, and I think making your future bigger than your past is a really big important play.
And you obviously have invested in yourself as well, mentioning the coaching groups and things like that. You obviously value the education and the growth for yourself.
Yeah, look, it's definitely. I mean, that was one of the things I regretted. I remember early on I wanted to get coached, and someone I had sort of close by was going, "Oh, don't spend money with people like that because it's a waste of time." And when I started to really invest in that, personal development is a part of becoming a good business owner, a strong entrepreneur. You need to grow. It's a parallel. Yep. And one of the best investments you can make is in yourself, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Phil, thank you so much for your time today. It was really, really cool to hear about all the amazing things that you guys are doing, but also your journey as a business owner, and some of your values and what you look for in your team. I'm sure is going to help some business owners out there that are listening today. And I know that's something you mentioned, community. It's something I'm really passionate about. And if we all give a little bit, we all help each other that little bit, and make big changes to the world. So thank you.
Thank you.
I did want to quickly before we go, I wanted you to give you have a podcast or YouTube channel?
Yeah, so Corey and I have a YouTube channel called It Starts With Plastic Free. So if you check out the Hygiene Co, where am I? I'm trying to get that right there. That's the channel, and it starts with plastic free. It's weekly, and we talk about all things environmental and what we can do, and just bringing awareness out there. And then we've got our socials on LinkedIn and Instagram. So there's Hygiene Co, my own personal ones, and also our Clean Life brand, if I can give you that a plug, because that's the brand that people see in stores.
Please do, yes.
And that's the one that's the only plastic-free Australian-made range out there. So, yeah, help local manufacturing and start to share it around. And we'd love to hear feedback from people telling us how we can improve our products and what they'd like to see in a wet wipe pack.
Love it. I'm going to go and find some for myself. Thank you so much.
Thank you.